I've attempted to reason with Curveball Earth believers with logic and repeatable observations that belie their model, but some just ardently try to defend it. And in this particular case, I've titled it, "Hello, my favorite closet heliosexual." Describe these folks that don't really want to logically defend the ball Earth after such examples of the annular eclipse of 2023, October 14th, which proved that the sun and moon cannot be at these vast distances because there is no parallax between the two from different points of view or reference planes at the same time. It does not rotate any differently, which it should, because one object is 400 times closer than the other. The sunspots observed during the annular eclipse prove that. The rotation is symmetrical from all different points of view.
Now, let's show you another example of parallax.
As we move, nearby objects seem to move more than farther objects. Look at Mount Timpanogos, which is about 9 kilometers away. It doesn't seem to be moving as I drive up the interstate, but the fields and buildings next to the freeway seem to be whipping past quickly. We can judge that the buildings we see are closer than the mountain, but further than the billboard signs by how fast they seem to move. Of course, the buildings aren't moving, we are.
Alex from NASA explained what we saw during the 2017 eclipse. And again, when it comes to this eclipse or the annular eclipse that made an X in Texas, we don't hear anything. Because again, this north and south movement really doesn't correlate for a total eclipse. Should be a partial only with that sort of movement, folks. If we're on a ball and they have to be aligned on the node on the ecliptic plane for all this magic to happen. That's why a central line path of east or west to east, they can go ahead and trot these geniuses out to explain. But anything else, crickets.
To try to make it as simple as possible, it really boils down to how fast the Earth is spinning and how fast the moon is orbiting around it. The moon is orbiting about twice as fast as the Earth is spinning. The moon is orbiting about twice as fast as the Earth is spinning.
And that goes along with the comment that I tried to make to this clown here. I shouldn't call him a clown because at least he has the self-fortitude to come out and try to defend this ball Earth logic. Different calculators, and plug all that in and it will tell you all about that. You can pick your observer height and it will do the calculations for you and show you how far you could see before you would run into the horizon of the ball Earth. So you can figure all this out. It's all in plain sight. Nothing is hidden. Just like the Bible says, in the end times, people will go to and fro and knowledge will be increased. You don't have to go anywhere now. You can sit on your couch and figure all this out. It'd take a little time and effort on your part. I won't bother reading my reply to this magnificent mathematical garb that bears no relation to reality. I just hit him with the facts. I'm depicting where the moon would be at that point. At that specific moment in time, right here, it's half dark. If our model of how this is occurring is true, this here is a depiction of a waxing gibbous moon, setting in the west with the sun rising in the east. Where it's depicted, it's right here. See how half of it's lit, half of it's dark? If the yellow is really the moon, then that's where it is when that observation is made in the video. So you're still, if you're Observer is not at sea level, but on the highest peak in New Mexico at 13,000 feet, you could still only see that far, 737,000 feet before you'd run into the horizon. But a bigger detail that belies your model and proves this is impossible is the very fact that anyone on this ball Earth, if that's what you want to claim you're on, can look at a moon calendar and find out when a waxing gibbous moon phase is. Go out before sunset, look in the east, and you will see the full moon. They won't call it that, even if it looks completely full. They'll say it's 98, 99, some percentage other than full, because full would mean it'd have to be behind the earth and you can't see it prior to the sun setting. That is a waxing gibbous moon. Because if you go to the antipodal point on the opposite side of New Mexico, where this video here of the horizontal lunar eclipse was filmed, you will not see the waxing gibbous moon prior to the sunset. But you should be, because this is not a waxing gibbous moon. All data, which I mentioned in P1 of this series, a Curveball Earth mockumentary, prove that that night it was a full moon when it rose, because it rose after sunset. Only a waxing gibbous moon rises in the east prior to the sun setting in the west. So in this Curveball Earth mockumentary part 1, I went over the details the day before the total lunar eclipse on December 9th. As you can see, the moon was a waxing gibbous. They say full, but it's 99.6. It's almost full. They claim there's a darkened limb here. You can document this yourself with real-world observation every month. You will see this occur. And you will know it's not a full moon if it rises before the sun sets. Moonrise 1620. On the same day, the sun set at 1655. That is what makes a waxing gibbous moon. You can see it prior to sun setting. So real-world observation that will trump the stories of the die-hard ball earthers that wish to bedazzle us all with their fantastical mathematical garb that they claim falls within the parameters of refraction. The problem is they don't go into the other aspect, which would be the opposite horizon. If this were true and our model is correct, then we were looking at a waxing gibbous moon when it's disappearing in the video footage. As you can see here, another point I was trying to make. You see the sunspots. You see the bite on the disk of the sun. No matter where you were when you observed this, and they've got video footage from multiple locations that I've tried to point out. See how it's at a different angle? The bite and the sunspots remain the same. Now, I've shown you parallax earlier, so how can that be? They're 400 times different distance. We should see not symmetrical movement. The whole objects rotate the same. They claim the moon is moving twice the speed that we are spinning, and they don't talk about the sun. The sunspots are moving tremendously fast around the center, but it doesn't move at all. During the entire thing, I didn't see any movement. And all I've ever said from the beginning, prove Jesus lied. Jesus says the moon gives its own light. The video stops. See, it's already disappeared, but it's above the horizon when it does completely darken. And at that point, it's in totality. It's not directly behind, but it has entered totality and thus disappeared. And they claim it's because it's behind the Earth. trusted source NPR News tells you right there, December 9, 2011, total lunar eclipse on Saturday. Western states get a rare view. Los Angeles, Phoenix, Denver, and Winnipeg. Well, Los Angeles is damn near sea level. But let's go over here where the posted here is. This is the information from NPR and space.com for the morning of the horizontal lunar eclipse that was filmed from New Mexico. They list all these cities. They don't list any city in New Mexico, but as I've stated, you've got Denver, Chicago, Phoenix, Los Angeles, San Francisco. I plugged in the elevation, which they had missing because certain mathematical wizards wish to explain that when you're high up, you can see further. Well, that would equate to more time of visibility. But here in the Mile High City, as you can see, we only get 3 minutes. Chicago, 1 minute. Dallas, 1 minute. Then when you come over to LA, which is only 300 feet in elevation, you get 4 minutes. San Francisco, 52 feet above sea level, and you get, what, 4 minutes? Come on. So that analogy doesn't really hold water unless you think all of this data is bunk from your trusted sources. But he wants to claim that because New Mexico was at about 5,000 feet, that gives us an extra 1.25 degrees of visibility over the horizon of the ball Earth. And all of this at the end of his garb, he wants to claim, will calculate to 3 moon diameters. So it all works out. And it's perfectly acceptable. And it falls within our frame of reference on a ball Earth. Coming up in April, I wanted to go over a few animations from our trusted sources. This coming from YouTube channel from space.com. As you can see, I've stopped the video at the 11-second mark. This would be around the Houston area. And then on the opposite side of the center line, out here in the western prairie of Texas, I'm going to pull up a few animations that really belie your model. But as the path moved between these 2 points at the exact same moment in time, you can see the darkened area on the disk of the sun is on opposite limbs. So how can that happen in an open air sky vacuum? I could see if we have a dome over our head like a mirror, but an open air sky vacuum? Curveballers in the past during the October 2023 annular eclipse claimed that it was the rotation of the Earth that caused the rotation of the bite and the sunspots during that eclipse to rotate. Now I've put up these locations here, Houston and Rough Canyon, 335 miles apart, and they no longer claim it's Earth spin because they sent them an animation of what it would appear like at the exact same time, so they claim it's parallax. And that's exactly what we should see if Earth were a globe. Now, I want to set the stage here for you before I show you these two locations. This one on the left will be from Chicago, and this one on the right will be from southern Tennessee. 500 miles apart on the same longitude line. These here are on the same latitude. And they were symmetrical, just like these. The bite meaning are on opposite limbs of the moon, the lit area. But yet, I'm sure I'll hear the same excuse, parallax. So how can we see the very same thing at the exact same time, only flipped? I mean, I can see how a glass mirror in the sky or the firmament would cause or create that. But to claim it's parallax, really? You go from Earth curve or Earth rotation to now parallax. Way up here near Chicago, folks. Now, I've had curveballers that have failed to reproduce accurately the 2017 total solar eclipse in AutoCAD from the position of Tennessee. I've just shown you 2 points 500 miles apart from near Chicago to Tennessee. Now I'm going to go from Chicago to nearly Mobile, Alabama. Now that I've given them examples of images, animations, if you will, from the exact same moment in time, no longer Earth rotation can account for it, so it has to be parallax. And that doesn't really work if Earth is a ball and it's curved and everyone in North America is facing south to see this. Because at the exact same time, you have a little sliver up here of sunlight near Chicago, while you have quite a bit down near Mobile. But you would think if it was parallax, you would have the bigger bites seen up here, since it passed near Mobile. Again, it's counterintuitive. I'd like to engage you folks in a little bit of critical thinking. I've already shown you an animation of what would be seen at a specific moment in time from Rough Canyon to Houston. And this big marker here is the center line of the eclipse, as well as this one. You can see I've got 2 places north, 2 places south. They are equidistant from the center line, so that I can show you the symmetrical rotation that occurs. Now, keep in mind this sub-solar point, if you drew a line straight into the center of your ball Earth and popped it out, it would come out right there and go straight back to the sun with the moon lined up right in the center. That is where the ecliptic plane must be in order for our ball Earth model here to work and for this to occur. This is the explanation they give us for why this happens. So, you saw this was symmetrical already. Allow me to show you these other points. Notice here in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see the longitude and latitude. All Earth apologists have claimed parallax as the cause for this, noting this symmetrical nature occurred at the exact same moment in time, but this occurred in totality before this one. And how do you explain this one when they're all on the same longitude? This is the latitude here is different, but these are all on the same longitude line, equal distance away from the center. Just so you understand what I'm talking about here, look at the subsolar point right here. This is the eclipse we're talking about, the one that's going to occur in April. Show some distances here. This place up in Lake Superior to this location here, bottom right, you see we're at 41 degrees 88 south of Chicago, 389 miles away. To the very center line of the eclipse, I think it was about 570 miles. And you go down to this place in Tennessee, 823, and then down to Mobile, Alabama, for almost 1,200 miles. So we got the same amount of distance between here and the center line as we do up here in Lake Superior. Now, allow me to bring up the point in Tennessee and this point south of Chicago first, so that you can see the symmetrical. See these 2 locations here at the same time. This being Chicago, this being Tennessee. Reversed symmetrical lights. Okay? Sun is sliver down here on the south. Up here, it's on the north limb. Same thing here in Chicago. The bite here should be more than the one here because it's all happening from this location. Shouldn't be symmetrical is the point. If Earth is a ball. But as you see at the same moment in time, Curveballer will say, well, yeah, this is before. Well, they're not in the path of totality. I'm just showing you what it appears like at the exact same moment in time. Another critical observation that belies the model. From this point on Lake Superior, around 4688 to here in Mobile, Alabama. Remember, they're equidistant to the center line of totality. Path goes up through this direction. So, when we look at these 2 points, at the exact same moment in time, Lake Superior up here, 305 Eastern. Now remember, we're on the same longitude, but this is Eastern time zone, Central. So exact same moment in time, the same longitude, you have what appears to be the exact same amount of illumination, if you will, of the sun, or exact same bite taken, only on different limbs of the sun. Irregardless of where the maximum eclipse is taking place at this moment, it's all occurring south. So the place north or furthest away should have a different amount of the bite, don't you? We can assume that 2 places 1,200 miles apart, if this is closer to where it's actually occurring, shouldn't have symmetrical but reversed bites taken on the sun. We can logically assume or conclude that an open air sky vacuum shouldn't render this image. But a molten looking glass, if you will, as described in the Bible in the book of Job, sure makes more sense for this observation to occur. And if there's nothing to this, why are they attempting to censor that information? Why, when you see flat earth videos, do they put their context box under it? Or in the case of this playlist, they show 179 videos, but 60 of them are unavailable, shadow banned, deleted, what have you. I've not taken them down, so why can't you go and watch them? What's the harm? Think about it, folks. Critically thinking people know how to decipher lies are by examining the details of the story. Truth is always congruent. Lies are contradictory when it comes to the details of the story. So let's go through the details of our real science, as noted here from the Astronomy Department at Ohio State. For example, if you look at how they claim the light happens to create the solar eclipse, but what I want to focus your attention on right now is how they claim with the lunar eclipses up here in this diagram, again depicting the straight sunlight coming in, but then when it hits the earth, we've got bendy light, or creating the umbra penumbra abracadabra shadow, I call it, that you can't reproduce here on earth. You don't ever see a shadow like this, a dark area with a light area. Please show me, curveballers. I want to see it. Anyhow, the story is the whole thing lasts 6 hours for the lunar. By the time it starts here till it ends here, penumbral. That matches their observations. Look here. 2018, the longest or greatest eclipse of the century. 6 hours, 14 minutes. From beginning of penumbral to the end of it. Now, look at how they calculate this when you go to compare who can see it. Can they see it from the antipodal point? It's not 6 hours. It's exactly 11 hours all the time. Watch right here, 99.9. And apologetics for the globe lie will always claim silly stuff like, it's a rounding error. See, now it's 100%, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, still full moon, 4, 5 hours, 6 hours, 7, 8, 9, still 100%, 10, 11, look at that, 12 hours before it drops. But again, this is just to be able to cover different locations and it being able to be seen halfway around when you consider the 2011 horizontal lunar eclipses. Error of double what they claim. See, these details that are contradictory prove it's not true and it's a lie. But only when you examine the details will you find these lies. See here, parallel light rays when they tell you they discovered 2,000 years ago that it was a ball Earth. And he knew it was 7 degrees off at this well over here versus the well in Syene. And from that, we could calculate the diameter of the ball Earth at 40,000 kilometers. But then what happens when they need to explain away the moon disappearing and then turning red? They come up with bendy light rays that create a umbra penumbra abracadabra shadow. See that? Aha, see? Look at this. Opposite side of the Earth, crisscross their lines. But hey, what happened to parallel sun rays over here? When they need the light rays to be straight, they're straight. When they need them bent, they're bent. And apologetics for the ball Earth will say, well, it's still within a half a degree, so essentially it's straight. If you draw this up in AutoCAD, folks, draw a line from the tangent point over here at the radius of the sun, offset at 200,000 miles. Draw a horizontal line straight out, and then the bent line over here to the Earth, on the opposite limb of the Earth at its tangent point. Then measure from that offset line 200,000 miles away. The lines that people are claiming are straight are off by almost 1,000 miles. They're off by 430,000 miles from a horizontal line drawn this way to that line. It's ridiculous, people, but that's why they never show this at scale. They never put it in its entirety. They give it to you in piecemeal, because when you put it all together, the story doesn't coalesce. You can see the incoherent statements and the lies that belie this model and prove it to be false. And then they invoke different things like the sigil of Satan, the story they're telling. What are the odds, folks? Just coincidence? Come on. I've often told these curveball Earth believers or ball Earth apologists that ask me to give an example of how everything works on a flat Earth. My model is what the Bible says. It states there's a firmament. Air pressure, for a simple example, if you have pressure, you have to have a containment vessel. The Bible says there's a firmament or a molten looking glass. That explains a lot of these symmetrical rotations we observe during total eclipses. Of course, our pseudoscience, if you will claim this here for the solarian or horizontal lunar eclipse, we can't see the red moon because the white blocks the light. Really? Now, Jesus said the moon won't give its light, so it doesn't reflect light, according to the Bible.
Yeah, the Earth's shadow has nearly completely covered the moon now. We can see that there's just that very thin part of the moon that is left as that silvery color. When totality starts, all of that silvery bit will disappear. The moon will be completely covered in the Earth's shadow. And at this point, the moon will turn a red color. Now, one of the interesting things with lunar eclipses is that we never know exactly what shade of red the moon is going to turn. The first question, of course, is, right, well, the first question is, in fact, why does the moon turn red? We shouldn't be able to see it at all because if you think about it, we have the sun and the earth and the moon. The earth is exactly between the sun and the moon. It's blocking all of the sunlight from reaching the moon directly. So in theory, the moon should completely disappear.
And all I've ever said was prove Jesus wrong. You can prove this is crazy. This is nuts. I'll show you the astronomical guy, Graham, from Time and Date, claiming the reason we don't see it red, even though it's red, is because this white makes it impossible for us to see the red. Until the white completely goes away, then we can see the red.
And we can already see from our tile, from our moon up in the corner there from Griffith Observatory, that it's actually starting to turn a little bit red because we're edging in towards the total phase of our eclipse.
Right, so we are just a couple of minutes away from the start of totality. So we are now going to start to see this reddish color. Any part of the moon that is already in the dark part of the Earth's shadow will already be this red color, but we can't really see it from here on the Earth until the whole of the moon has been covered by the Earth's shadow, because when we still have that little bright crescent, our eyes cannot adjust to the contrast, and we simply cannot see that red color until the whole of the moon has darkened. And then this color becomes apparent.
That's no different than the space clowns over here at NASA Goddard telling you that the reason the moon turns red is because the rim of the ball Earth, the rim of the nasshole Earth, is shining all the sunrises and sunsets at once, and then we see it.
It's going to be a total lunar eclipse, so the moon will pass completely into the shadow of the Earth. And as it does that, the moon will appear a certain hue of red, which is the projection of all of the sunsets on the Earth projected onto the surface of the moon. It's going to be quite spectacular and very beautiful. What we see in this animation is a recreation of LRO orbiting the moon during the upcoming eclipse. When the moon passes into the Earth's umbra, the Earth's shadow, that's when it is completely blocked from the sun. And we see the effect of Earth's sunsets being projected onto the lunar surface. That's why it turns a hue of red.
So I attempt to engage all Earthers in a thought experiment by stating, okay, if all that is true, look here, you've got a total solar eclipse coming up on August 12th, 2026. Out here, get on a limb out here where it's in totality on one of these islands here, where you've got all this so-called earthshine, if you will. Since that umbra shadow can only touch the tip of the Earth, we should have all kinds of sunlight reflecting off the ocean, which is much more reflective than rocks and dust on the moon. So why can't we, the person looking from, say, point C here, look up with his naked eye and see the the actual moon being backlit from the glare from the Earth's ocean here and lit up in its full totality. Why is it, Curveball Earth Believer, that the only way you can produce that image is you have to have someone claiming they used a long exposure to actually grab more light, and then all of a sudden you could see that it was in fact the moon blocking the sun? And people with critical minds know they are dark orbs because they create different paths, different diameter shadows on the ground. It's not the moon. Anyhow, if analyzed critically, you will come to these truths that belie the model.